annoyed every time Dan Le Batard pontificates about the sports media industry? Well, too bad, He knows you don't give a damn about what he's gonna say. It's time for Sports Media Talk today.
Earlier in the show, I didn't even bring it up. Billy brought it up. I didn't bring up Skip Bayless or any of that stuff. But I have learned over the last few months that a lot of people do not like when I talk about this stuff. And I thought Juju was very correct when he said the reason people don't talk or want me to talk about this stuff is because they're dollar amounts that don't affect our daily lives. All of us have problems. We don't need to hear how much Stephen A. Smith thinks he is worth. But the reason, Stugotz, and I'm curious why it's not more interesting in here. The reason I talk about it so much is that everything we've done over the last 3.5 years, all of the tumult that has pulled me away from family during an important time, it's all because we are trying to change and alter the way that these things are valued so that the corporations can't keep all the money, so that we can feed our thing with a new value that makes Stephen A. look at what we're making and say, wait a minute, why are they're not worth more than I am? Why do they have a deal that's better than mine? And it is better than his. He's saying, not anymore. Not anymore. I want a better deal than the one they have and the one McAfee has. And so because that's so, it's been a singular obsession of mine, even though you know I've never cared at all about money. You know this. It feeds everyone here the fact that we're trying to change the way all of this is done so that we insist to everybody who wants to work with us, no, we're worth this. Not that, because we know what our inventory is, we know what our value is, and we want to show everyone else in the industry what it is. Why aren't you guys more interested in it, given that it feeds everyone here? And I asked the question, pardon my tone, because I really don't understand why you wouldn't be interested. I've never been interested in the intricacies of this. Never thought about it. But now I've had to. It kind of makes me miserable. I don't want to think about it. It's the enemy of fun. Like it really is to have creativity contaminated by having to think about this garbage that pollutes it. But I do genuinely wonder, I ask all of you, why aren't you guys more interested in, oh my God, Skip Bayless's seat just opened, and Fox built a whole thing around, let's just get two ESPN's old white guys, Colin and Skip, we'll put them here and we'll build a whole industry. Holy now Nick Wright is worth more than everybody because Fox just lost Bayless. And God, I don't even know how much Cowherd's going to get because he's really smart and really calculated. Stugotz, you and I spent time in Jacksonville with him, and he fell asleep at 8 p.m.
Yep, at the dinner table. Yeah.
And he knows so much about focus groups and how you get, the West Coast. We didn't know any of that. He knew all of it. And he wants to be, at the end of his career, the mogul that Simmons is, the mogul that Peyton Manning is, the mogul that McAfee is. And I just genuinely ask you guys the question because it's been a life consumption of mine, an obsession that has made me really unhappy. Not this thing I love, but the thing has to maintain its value. So everything that you have to deal with everywhere else is just a giant pain in the ass.
I think I go with Juju on this in terms of why I'm not interested on the air and discussing it. I don't think our audience is interested. And so I try to always do it through that prism. If you and I were sitting outside, on a patio, rocking chairs, I could talk to you about it till the end of time. But talking about it on the air, I'm kind of with Juju, like, hey, don't want to hear about what Skip Bayless wants to be. Not feeling bad for Skip Bayless. He made hundreds of millions of dollars giving sports opinions for his entire life.
Okay, so, yes, all of it understood. But I just got done telling you that Greg Cody, overgrown toddler, hasn't grown up, good at one thing. Tim Kirkshin, overgrown toddler, hasn't grown up, good at one thing. Dan Le Batard, overgrown toddler, good at one thing. This has been a singular obsession of mine for 30 years to be good at this, at what it is we're doing. And by accident...
We are good at this, though.
But by accident, it has resulted in a value that as soon as the corporation started cutting, next thing you know, Chris Cody is out. And we're like, wait a minute. That's not the way it's supposed to work in a business that cares about people, is it? Is that the way it's supposed to work? So everybody who rides with this show, the backstory of it goes back forever. Stugotz, do you think that at any point in my sports writing career, the DraftKings deal is worth so much more than people think it is? Stephen A. knows this. McAfee knows this. If you're in business with us, if you're in loyalty with us, I just walked into another studio and I saw Pablo Torre and Skipper and Sampson doing a podcast that I know to be smarter about sports business than anything, and I know how you're consuming it. So there are a whole lot of people who want to learn about this. They don't just happen to be our audience, which wants us to do normal hijinks, but I'm explaining to you and the audience, hey, the normal hijinks pay for everything, and also, hey, Stephen A., you don't have to be a company, man. You're a company, man. Like, you can come out and keep us company.
But like, I think Stephen A. I think he thinks he could pull it off, both of them. He could stay at ESPN and still
he
be.
He can. All of these but why doesn't anybody care when what I'm pointing out to you is Fox got into this business in the laziest way possible. They just said, hey, Bayless, hey, Cowherd, can you come over here and hot take? And they built everything they built. And then in that time, First Take contaminated everything. All of it went to garbage debate television. And in the doing of that, Stephen A. Smith kills the end of the guy's career who gave him the entire opportunity to work at ESPN. That is the top of our game. And I still don't understand. I'll have to put down my sword because it's clear that nobody wants to hear about it. But you understand why it has been a singular obsession of mine for 3.5 years? I'll tell you why. Because Stugotz always wants more money.
I don't even know if you're right that the audience doesn't
Blame it on
want
me.
it. Like, Stu, are you even right that the audience doesn't? Because that's like, we don't get better numbers on videos than when Dan, like, it's about Stephen A. Smith and stuff. So there's something going on there. Maybe they're hate watching it. Maybe
no, it's not our normal audience. People want it. It's just our audience doesn't want it. Like, it's other people.
I'm not judging this by social media clicks and hits and all that stuff. I feel like I know our audience after 20 years of doing this, and maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, and maybe there's been a change. I just don't feel like that's what they want to hear from us all the time, you know? So, not that Dan does it all the time, but he does it enough where...
No, I do it. I do it too much, but I'm telling you why I do it too much. Stugotz, look, one of the things I'm trying to do, embarrassing myself on South Beach Sessions, Pablo's encouraging me to do this. Just be more publicly vulnerable. Try to link up with your audience in a way that's not concealed where your insecurities are. Try not to hide. I am trying and have been trying since we did this to show people what it is that we're trying to do so they could be proud of it with us, because I'm proud of it and it's a hard thing to do. When I tell you, like, panic attacks, Stugotz, we've talked about this before, but I've never talked about this part of it publicly, because when I tell you I've been passing out in places, it's the scariest thing that I could possibly do to my wife. Like, the last thing I see every time is her fear. So if you want me to care like that, and if you will follow my curiosities to the places where you care about our show enough so that we can do all this stuff because we know you're with us, and that loyalty is at least in part because this is an authentic thing that you kind of feel like you know, I don't expect you to have to care about me talking about this, but I will kind of ask you to tolerate it, because I do think that the innards of this business are interesting. And when I talk about the player empowerment all the time, if the punter arrives at the game and changes everything, what do you think LeBron and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are going to want when the athletes have all recognized that this is a business that if you do it correctly, you can be the Kelseys, and you're so much bigger than football players. Like, you can have a career for 30 years after the one that made you famous, Shannon Sharp, There are people watching him now who don't understand the degree of difficulties on what he just created and have forgotten that he's a Hall of Famer and one of the best to ever play his position. And furthermore, as a lifetime single man who is crazed by competitive, Shannon Sharpe wants to beat everybody at this game. He's a lifelong single person who's like, I am going to crush everybody because of my competitiveness. Because, and this is no slight on McAfee, but if you're Shannon Sharpe, you're saying, if he can do that, why can't I do that?
I think a lot of players, current players, are having similar thoughts, like towards the end of their career.
But they all are now,
Right.
Stugotz. All Patrick Beverly, all Draymond Green, they've all seen now the planning of the end of their careers. But all show I've been getting inundated, and I understand this part too. People are plenty tired of talking about LeBron and empowerment. But all show long I've been getting, Dan doesn't realize what Michael Jordan has done. And I'm like, you don't realize what LeBron is intent on doing. Like, I'm well aware of how much money Michael Jordan made in and for Nike.
All those people are right. I mean,
That's fine. Yeah. And you can think that. But when one of your businesses, again, Peyton Manning, 9 years, $700 million just from ESPN. That's not the Netflix stuff. And that's just from ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And also, LeBron can do a lot with the sneaker companies as well. And LeBron is already buying teams and will probably buy an NBA team. And on top of that, what's the percentage he's getting on all of these other basketball players that now work for him as he plays against them because they are clients of his friend? You're just not paying attention to how interested this person in the end of his career is to beating Michael Jordan there, even though Stugotz thinks he never will, and beating Tom Brady there, even though Tom Brady is going to get $375 million for 20 weekends.